The alien girl closed her eyes because she believed the universe had already decided her fate. Above her, the sky burned red with the light of falling ships. The battlefield of Karath 12 looked less like a planet and more like the graveyard of 1,000 wars. Metal rained from the sky. Explosions echoed across the broken plains. Smoke drifted through the cold wind like ghosts looking for bodies to claim. And the girl lying in the dust knew one of those ghosts would soon be hers. Her name was Lyra Varel, once a proud cadet of the Valari Defense Fleet. Her people were known across the galaxy for discipline, intelligence, and elegant starships shaped like silver wings. But today, none of that mattered. Today the Valari fleet had lost. Her armor was cracked. Her breathing hurt. A piece of shrapnel had pierced the side of her chest, and each heartbeat felt slower than the last. Lyra stared at the dark sky. Strange how quiet the universe could feel after a battle. Her training had prepared her for heroic endings. Last stands. Final speeches. But no one had prepared her for this lonely silence. Somewhere in the distance, a drone buzzed overhead, scanning the field for survivors. Its cold mechanical voice echoed. Scanning. No combat-capable life detected. Lyra almost laughed. Good, she thought weakly. At least no one would see her like this. Her people had fought the invading Draxari Dominion for 3 long years. The Draxari were conquerors, cold, calculating, and certain that every civilization weaker than them existed only to serve. The Valari had resisted longer than anyone expected. But eventually numbers always win. The last Valari cruiser had fallen from orbit only an hour ago. Lyra had watched it burn. She closed her eyes slowly. So this is how it ends. The wind whispered across the broken battlefield. For a moment, everything was peaceful. Then she heard footsteps. Heavy, slow, crunching across metal and gravel. Her mind struggled to process the sound. Maybe it was another Draxari soldier coming to confirm kills. Maybe it was a scavenger drone. Either way, she didn't have the strength to care. The footsteps stopped beside her. There was a pause. Then a voice spoke. A tired, slightly amused voice. Well, that's new. Lyra's eyes opened. Standing above her was something she had only seen in intelligence reports. A human. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing scratched armor painted dull gray. His helmet hung loosely at his belt, revealing messy dark hair and a face that looked more curious than concerned. He crouched down beside her. "Hey," he said casually. "You alive?" Lyra blinked slowly. Humans were not supposed to be here. They were a young species. New to interstellar politics. Known mostly for stubborn diplomacy and reckless exploration. They were not soldiers in this war. The human waved a hand in front of her face. "Oh good," he said. "Blinking is a positive sign." She tried to speak, but her throat was dry. "Don't strain," he said quickly. He reached into a small pack on his belt and pulled out a metal flask. "Here. Drink." He lifted her head slightly and tilted the flask toward her lips. The liquid burned slightly, like strong herbs mixed with something sharp. But almost instantly warmth spread through her chest. Her breathing steadied. Lyra stared at him in disbelief. "Why?" she whispered. The human shrugged. "Because leaving someone to die alone feels wrong." He glanced around the battlefield. "Also because if the Draxari patrol shows up, they'll shoot us both. So we should probably leave." She stared at him. "You are human." "Correct," he said proudly. "Top of my species, actually." She frowned weakly. "You are not part of this war." "Also correct." "Then why are you here?" He scratched his chin. "Long story." Lyra's vision blurred slightly. "Leave me," she whispered. "You will be killed if they find you." The human looked at her for a moment. Then he sighed. "You aliens always do that dramatic sacrifice thing." Before she could protest, he slid one arm under her shoulders and lifted her carefully. "Relax," he said. "You're light." Her ears twitched in surprise. "What are you doing?" He stood up fully, holding her as if carrying an injured friend instead of a stranger from another species. Saving you. That is irrational. Most good decisions are. He started walking. The ruined battlefield stretched endlessly around them, lit by burning wreckage and distant lightning. Lyra felt the warmth of consciousness slowly returning thanks to the strange drink he had given her. She studied his face. You risk death, for someone you do not know. Yep. Why? The human thought for a moment. Then he smiled. Because humans are weird like that. She frowned slightly. That is not logical. Exactly. He stepped over a piece of fallen machinery. My name's Ethan Hale, by the way. Lyra Varel. Well, Lyra Varel, Ethan said, adjusting his grip. You picked a bad day to almost die. Her eyes slowly closed again. Why? Because, he said calmly, I have a ship nearby. She blinked. And humans have a habit of ruining other species' expectations. In the distance, the sound of engines echoed. A patrol. Draxery. Ethan looked toward the horizon. Yep, he muttered. That's definitely bad guys. Lyra tried to sit up. You must run. Relax. He smiled slightly. You're about to learn something important about humans. The patrol ships roared closer. Bright searchlights swept across the battlefield. Ethan turned toward the darkness of a nearby canyon and began running. Humans, he said breathlessly, are very good at surviving situations we absolutely should not survive. Behind them, Draxery scanners activated. Alarms began echoing across the battlefield. And somewhere above the burning sky, a small, battered human ship waited. The galaxy had expected the Valari War to end tonight. But the galaxy had not expected a human. The small human ship waited in the darkness like a stubborn insect that refused to leave. Its hull was scratched, patched in several places with mismatched metal plates, and its engine hummed with a sound that suggested it had survived more than one bad idea. Ethan Hale sprinted across the rocky canyon floor with Lyra still in his arms. Behind them, the sky filled with searchlights. The Draxery patrol had arrived. 3 black gunships hovered over the battlefield, their engines roaring like angry beasts. Long beams of white light swept across the wreckage, scanning for survivors. A mechanical voice echoed through the night. Life signs detected. Pursuing. Ethan groaned. Well, he said between breaths, that escalated quickly. Lyra tried to focus despite the pain. You cannot outrun them. Oh, I know, Ethan replied. That would be ridiculous. He slid down a steep rocky slope and continued running. But outrunning them isn't the plan. Blaster fire suddenly ripped across the canyon wall. Chunks of stone exploded beside them. The Draxery had seen movement. More shots followed. Bright plasma bolts lit the darkness like deadly lightning. Lyra forced herself to stay conscious. You are insane, she muttered. Possibly. Another blast hit the ground behind them, throwing dust into the air. But trust me, Ethan said calmly, this is the fun part. The canyon curved sharply ahead. And there, hidden between towering rock walls, stood the ship. It was smaller than Lyra expected. A compact vessel shaped like a triangular wedge, with thrusters mounted unevenly along its sides. One landing leg looked like it had been replaced by something that used to belong to a cargo drone. The side hatch opened automatically as Ethan approached. He rushed inside. Welcome aboard, he said cheerfully. The hatch slammed shut just as another plasma blast hit the canyon entrance. The ship shook violently. Lyra expected panic. Instead, Ethan gently placed her in the co-pilot's seat. Seatbelt, he said. She stared at the controls. The cockpit looked chaotic. Wires hung from the ceiling. Half the panels had handwritten labels. One screen displayed a blinking message that read, "Please do not press random buttons." Lyra looked at him. This ship should not exist. That's what the inspection officer said. Ethan dropped into the pilot seat and flipped several switches. Engines roared to life. Outside, The Draxery ships moved into the canyon. Searchlights locked onto the human vessel. Unidentified craft, a cold alien voice transmitted. Power down immediately. Ethan sighed. They always say that. Missile locks activated. Warning alarms filled the cockpit. Lyra's heart pounded. You cannot escape 3 gunships. Ethan cracked his neck casually. Escape. He pushed the throttle forward. The ship shot upward like a rocket. Who said anything about escaping? The canyon walls blurred as the ship blasted straight toward the enemy ships. Lyra's eyes widened. You are flying toward them. Yep. The first Draxery gunship fired. Ethan jerked the controls sideways at the last second. The plasma blast missed by inches. Humans, he said calmly, have a reputation for something called improvisation. The ship rolled violently, dodging 2 more blasts. Lyra grabbed the seat tightly. This is madness. Correct again. Ethan tapped a button. The ship suddenly released dozens of tiny metal spheres into the air. The Draxery ships continued firing. Then the spheres exploded into clouds of glowing dust. The scanners on the enemy ships went wild. Their targeting systems scrambled. Electronic confusion field, Ethan said proudly. Made it myself. One Draxery pilot shouted through the comm channel. Target lock lost. The second gunship fired blindly. Its blast struck the third ship. The explosion lit up the canyon. Lyra stared in disbelief. You made them attack each other. Ethan shrugged. Aliens rely too much on perfect technology. He flipped another switch. The human ship suddenly accelerated upward at an impossible angle. They burst out of the canyon and into open sky. Behind them, 2 damaged Draxery ships struggled to regain formation. The third had already crashed. Ethan smiled. And humans specialize in creative chaos. The ship rocketed toward space. But the Draxery were not finished. 2 gunships followed. Their engines screamed as they accelerated. Missile warnings returned. Lyra looked at the sensors. They will catch us. Ethan nodded. Probably. She stared at him. You say that very calmly. Experience. He tapped a screen. A star map appeared. Dozens of routes blinked across it. Lyra studied it. Where are we going? Ethan grinned. Somewhere the Draxery will absolutely hate. Missiles launched. The cockpit filled with warning alarms. Impact in 5 seconds. Ethan slammed a red lever. The ship vanished. Not exploded. Not destroyed. Simply gone. The missiles streaked past empty space. Inside the ship, everything went silent. Lyra looked out the viewport. Stars stretched into long lines of light. Her voice trembled. You jumped into hyperspace. Yep. That jump was not calculated. Correct. That is extremely dangerous. Also correct. She stared at him in disbelief. You risked tearing the ship apart. Ethan leaned back in his chair. Worth it. Lyra slowly turned toward the navigation screen. The destination coordinates appeared. Her blood went cold. No. Ethan glanced over. You recognize it. Her voice dropped to a whisper. That system is controlled by the Draxery High Command. Exactly. You are flying toward their capital. Ethan smiled. Humans have a saying. Lyra felt a strange chill run down her spine. What saying? Ethan's eyes gleamed with quiet determination. If you want to stop a war. The hyperspace tunnel roared around them. Sometimes you have to walk straight into the enemy's house. And far across the galaxy. The Draxery Dominion had no idea a single human had just decided to change the entire war. The stars stretched like rivers of light outside the ship as it tore through hyperspace. Inside the cockpit, silence hung between the 2 travelers. Lyra Varel stared at the navigation screen again and again, hoping the coordinates would somehow change. They didn't. The destination still burned on the screen. Draxery Prime System. The center of the empire that had destroyed her people's fleets. Her voice finally broke the silence. You cannot go there. Ethan didn't look worried. He simply adjusted the ship's power levels and checked the navigation readouts. Too late, he said casually. You are flying directly into the heart of their empire. That's the idea. Lyra gripped the edge of the console. You will be captured. Possibly. You will be executed. Also possible. Her ears twitched in frustration. Then why are you doing this? Ethan finally turned toward her. For the first time since they met, his expression was serious. Because someone has to end this war. Lyra stared at him. You are one human. True. The Draxery control hundreds of worlds. Also true. You cannot defeat an empire. Ethan smiled slightly. That's where humans get creative. The hyperspace tunnel suddenly collapsed. Stars returned. The ship dropped back into normal space. And the sight before them made Lyra's breath stop. The Draxery capital system filled the view. Massive warships orbited the central planet like dark metal moons. Defense platforms floated in precise formations. Energy shields glowed around the planet itself. It was the most heavily defended location in the entire Dominion. Thousands of weapons. Thousands of soldiers. Lyra whispered slowly. We will die here. Ethan leaned forward and activated the communication panel. Maybe. The ship's signal broadcast across every frequency in the system. Instantly, alarms began flashing on nearby Draxery ships. Unidentified vessel detected. Weapons powered up. A deep alien voice came through the comm system. Unknown craft. Identify yourself immediately. Ethan cleared his throat. This is Ethan Hale of Earth. There was a pause. Lyra blinked. You are telling them who you are. Ethan nodded. Honesty builds trust. The alien voice returned, colder this time. Earth is not part of this war. Correct. Then explain your presence. Ethan tapped another button. The main screen inside the cockpit suddenly lit up. Dozens of files appeared. Encrypted recordings. Battle reports. Military transmissions. Lyra stared at them. What is that? Ethan answered simply. Evidence. Then he sent it. Every file transmitted across the entire Draxery command network. Instantly. Across every warship. Across every station. Across the entire planet. Inside the files were recordings of secret Dominion orders. Orders that revealed the truth. The Draxery had not been defending themselves. They had been manipulating the war. Destroying peaceful systems. Faking attacks. Forcing civilizations into conflict. Even sacrificing their own fleets to justify expansion. Lyra's eyes widened. You exposed them. Yep. The comm channel exploded with shouting voices. Draxery commanders arguing. Ships requesting confirmation. Officers demanding explanations. The Empire's perfect image was collapsing. Ethan leaned back in his chair. Humans discovered something interesting about your war. Lyra whispered. What? That both sides were being played. He opened another screen. Dozens of signals began transmitting outward from the system. To neutral worlds. To independent alliances. To every major civilization in the galaxy. The truth was spreading. Fast. Very fast. The Draxery commander shouted through the comm channel. Human vessel, cease transmission immediately. Ethan smiled. Too late. The commander roared with anger. All ships, destroy that craft. Weapons across the system began charging. Hundreds of targeting locks appeared on Ethan's screen. Lyra felt her chest tighten. We cannot escape this. Ethan nodded calmly. Nope. She looked at him. Then why do you look satisfied? He pointed toward the viewport. Because humans rarely fight alone. Moments later, space rippled. Then it happened. One hyperspace jump. Then another. Then dozens. Ships began appearing across the system. Not warships. Not battle cruisers. But hundreds of civilian vessels. Cargo ships. Exploration craft. Mining vessels. Human ships. Lyra stared in disbelief. What is happening? Ethan grinned. Humans talk to each other. Across the system, human captains began broadcasting the same files Ethan had sent. Over and over. Across every channel. Across every public network. Across every civilian frequency. The truth about the war flooded the galaxy. And suddenly, the Draxri Dominion realized something terrifying. They could not stop it. If they destroyed Ethan's ship now, the recordings would only spread faster. The commander's voice returned, much quieter now. What do you want, human? Ethan spoke calmly. Peace. Silence filled the channel. Then he added one final sentence. And an end to the war you started. Minutes passed. No weapons fired. No ships moved. Finally, the commander spoke again. We will open negotiations. Lyra stared at Ethan. You forced them to stop. Not exactly. What do you mean? Ethan pointed toward the growing number of ships around them. Humans didn't win the war. He looked at the stars. We just made it impossible for anyone to keep lying about it. Hours later, the first peace transmissions began spreading across the galaxy. For the first time in years. The war stopped. Lyra looked at the human sitting beside her. You saved millions of lives. Ethan shrugged. Humans are stubborn like that. She studied him quietly. The galaxy underestimated your species. Ethan chuckled. Most people do. Outside the ship, the stars burned quietly. And across the universe, a new truth began spreading between civilizations. Humans were not the strongest species. They were not the oldest. They were not the most advanced. But when the impossible happened, when hope seemed gone, when logic said defeat was certain, humans did something no one expected. They tried anyway. And sometimes, that was enough to change the galaxy.